I stood in my lawyer's office watching security footage of my own mother directing a locksmith to break into my mountain house while my brother stood beside her with a smirk. They thought I was 300 miles away at my apartment. They had no idea I'd been planning for this moment for 6 months. No idea about the cameras, the deputy waiting in his patrol car down the driveway, or that this time, after 30 years of being invisible, I was finally done playing the family doormat. My name is Ryan, and I'm 32 years old. I work as an accountant in Denver, Colorado. I live in a modest one-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill, drive a 7-year-old truck, and most people would describe me as responsible, quiet, and unremarkable. But there's one thing about my life that's been consistently remarkable in the worst possible way. For the past 12 years, my family has forgotten to invite me to Christmas every single year. It started when I was 20, home from college for winter break. I was studying finance at the University of Colorado Boulder, working part-time at a bookstore to help with expenses. December 23rd rolled around, and I asked my mom what time I should come over on Christmas. She looked at me with surprise and said she thought I'd make my own plans with friends. My younger brother Derek, who was 16 at the time, was getting a new gaming system, a snowboard, and a weekend ski trip. I got a sweater 2 sizes too big and the assumption that I didn't want to be there. I told myself it was a misunderstanding. College kids are independent, right? She probably just wanted to give me space. The next year, I was 21 and living in a cramped apartment near campus. I called a week before Christmas to ask what I could bring. My mom sounded distracted. She said they were keeping it small that year, just her and Derek and my dad. I shouldn't worry about coming all the way down. It was fine. She'd see me some other time. I spent that Christmas eating ramen noodles and watching old movies, telling myself it was no big deal. By the time I was 24 and working my first real job in Denver, the pattern was undeniable. Every year brought a new excuse. They assumed I was busy with work. They didn't want to bother me since I lived so far away, even though it was only a 90-minute drive. They sent a text inviting me, but it must not have delivered. They thought I'd said I had other plans. The excuses piled up like snow in a blizzard, each one thin and flimsy on its own. But together they created an impenetrable barrier between me and my family. Meanwhile, Derek got the full celebration every single year. When he graduated high school, they threw him a massive party. When he turned 21, they rented out a restaurant. When he got his first job as a sales associate at a sporting goods store, my mom posted about it on social media like he'd been elected president. His birthdays were events. His accomplishments were landmarks. His existence was celebrated. Mine was optional. My father passed away 8 years ago from a sudden heart attack. He was only 56. I loved my dad, but I'd be lying if I said we were close. He worked long hours as a construction foreman and came home tired. He was a good man, a provider, but not particularly emotional or expressive. After he died, I thought maybe my mom would need me more. Instead, she seemed to fold all her attention even more tightly around Derek. He became her entire world. I became even more invisible. The Christmas I turned 28 was especially brutal. I'd had a hard year. A relationship had ended badly. I'd been passed over for a promotion. I was lonely and struggling, and I wanted nothing more than to be around family. I drove by my childhood home on Christmas Eve, just to see it. The house was blazing with lights, cars packed in the driveway and along the street. Through the living room window, I could see my mom, Derek, my Aunt Linda, Uncle Bob, my cousins, all laughing and talking. The whole extended family was there. Everyone except me. I sat in my truck across the street for 20 minutes, engine running, heat blasting, debating whether I should just walk up and knock. Part of me wanted to. Part of me knew that showing up uninvited would make me look desperate and pathetic. In the end, I drove home, stopping at a Chinese restaurant that was open late, ordering enough food for 2 people so the cashier wouldn't know I was alone. I ate it in front of my television, watching a basketball game I didn't care about, and told myself I was fine. In January, my family held a memorial lunch for my father's birthday at a local steakhouse. This was one of the few events they actually did remember to invite me to. Maybe because it was public and it would look bad if I wasn't there. I showed up, made small talk, tried to act normal. During lunch, Derek started talking about Christmas, laughing about some story involving our cousin's kids and a broken ornament. He turned to me casually and asked what I did for the holiday. I said, I worked. It was easier than the truth. Derek laughed and said, "Classic Ryan, always so boring. Always choosing work over fun." I didn't correct him. What was the point? After lunch, my mom pulled me aside in the parking lot. Her voice was sweet, almost sticky. She said Derek had a business opportunity, something involving a friend's landscaping company. He needed some startup capital. Could I loan him $50,000? She'd pay me back, of course. Family helps family, right? I stood there in the cold January air, car exhaust fogging around us, and something clicked in my brain. A realization so obvious I couldn't believe it had taken me this long to see it. They only contacted me when they needed money. I was not their son or their brother. I was their ATM. I told my mom I'd think about it. She kissed my cheek and said she knew she could count on me. I drove home feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. That night, I did something I should have done years earlier. I sat down at my kitchen table with my laptop and pulled up my bank statements. I went back 10 years and started tallying every transfer, every check, every PayPal payment it made to family members. Derek's business opportunities, 6 different ventures over the years, none of which ever turned a profit. Total loaned, $72,000. My mother's emergency repairs, a new roof that probably didn't need replacing, a furnace that supposedly broke, medical bills that insurance should have covered. Total loaned, $89,000. My cousin's medical expenses, an aunt's car troubles, an uncle's legal fees, another cousin's wedding costs. Total loaned, $43,000. Grand total, $204,000. Not a single penny had been repaid. Not one person had even mentioned paying me back. I sat there staring at the numbers on my screen until they blurred. $204,000. That was a house. That was early retirement. That was security and freedom and options. I'd given it away trying to buy something you can't purchase. Love. I was good with money. That's what made this especially pathetic. I'd studied finance. I understood compound interest and investment strategies. I'd been disciplined about saving since my first job at 16. I lived below my means, drove an old truck, rarely ate out, invested 15% of every paycheck. By the time I was 32, I'd built a net worth of around $600,000 through careful planning and aggressive saving. And I'd hemorrhaged $200,000 of it trying to matter to people who saw me as a resource, not a person. I closed my laptop, made myself a cup of coffee, sat in the dark of my apartment, listening to my upstairs neighbor's footsteps and the distant sound of traffic. That's when I decided I was done. Done trying to fit into a family that had no space for me. Done waiting for invitations that would never come. Done shrinking myself to make room for people who wouldn't notice if I disappeared. If they didn't want me in their lives, fine. I'd build a life so good, so full, so entirely mine that their absence wouldn't leave a hole. It would leave space for something better. I spent February looking at mountain properties. I'd always loved the mountains. Growing up, my dad used to take us camping near Breckenridge a few times. Those were some of my best memories, back when I was still young enough to believe I mattered. I wanted that feeling again. Peace, space, quiet. I found the perfect property in early March, 5 acres near Breckenridge, about 2 hours from Denver. There was a 3-bedroom cabin on it. Nothing fancy, but solid. 2 bathrooms, a big kitchen, massive windows overlooking a valley with views that made my chest ache. The listing said it needed some updating, but the bones were good. The property had been on the market for 8 months. The owners were motivated to sell. It was listed at $450,000. I offered $400,000 cash, no inspection contingencies, quick close. They accepted within 48 hours. I didn't tell my family, didn't mention it to my mom or Derek or anyone. For the first time in my life, I had something that was entirely mine, and I wanted to keep it that way. We closed in late March. I drove up the day I got the keys, parked in the gravel driveway, walked through my property, and cried. Not sad tears. Relief tears. I'd done something for myself, something that had nothing to do with earning approval or proving worth. I'd bought myself a home. I spent April through August renovating. Every weekend, I'd drive up Friday night after work and stay until Sunday evening. I tore out the old kitchen counters and installed butcher block, ripped up stained carpet and refinished the hardwood underneath, gutted the master bathroom and put in a massive soaking tub, built a new deck off the back of the house with a view of the valley, planted wildflowers along the driveway. I did most of the work myself, learning from YouTube videos and advice from the guys at the hardware store. It was therapeutic. Working with my hands, creating something. Every nail I hammered felt like I was building more than just a house. I was building a version of myself that didn't need anyone's permission to exist. In September, my mom called. I was at the mountain house, staining the new deck, when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but old habits die hard. She didn't ask how I was, just launched right in. Derek needed money again, $30,000 this time. He wanted to buy into a friend's car detailing business. It was a sure thing. He'd definitely pay me back this time. I kept staining the deck, phone tucked against my shoulder. I said no. There was a long silence. Then my mom laughed, like I'd made a joke. She said, "Come on, Ryan. You have plenty of money. You know family helps family." I said it again. No, I'd made other investments. I couldn't help this time. Her tone changed, got sharp. She said I was being selfish, that Derek was trying to build something and I was holding him back, that my father would be disappointed in me. That last part landed like a slap. I hung up without saying goodbye. 3 days later, Derek called. His approach was different, friendly, casual. Asked how I'd been, made some small talk about football season starting up. Then he slid into the request, like he was asking to borrow a cup of sugar. Just $30,000. He'd totally pay me back. He'd even put it in writing this time. I said no. Derek's voice got cold. He called me selfish. Said I'd always thought I was better than everyone else just because I went to college and had a fancy job. Said I was a stuck-up jerk who'd forgotten where he came from. I hung up on him, too. October and November passed quietly. I threw myself into work and weekend trips to my mountain house. I was happier than I'd been in years, even though I was spending more time alone than ever. Turned out being alone was better than being with people who made me feel worthless. In mid-November, my phone buzzed with a group text. It was from my mom to the family chat, which included me, Derek, and a handful of aunts, uncles, and cousins. The message said, "Thanksgiving at our place, Thursday, November 23rd at 3 p.m. Bring a side dish. Can't wait to see everyone." I stared at the message. I was included. After years of being forgotten, I was actually invited. I wanted to believe it meant something, that maybe they'd realized how they'd treated me, that maybe this year would be different. I decided to give them one more chance. I made a pumpkin pie from scratch using my grandmother's recipe. Drove to my childhood home on Thanksgiving afternoon with the pie still warm, hoping that maybe, just maybe, things had changed. My mom answered the door. She looked at me with genuine confusion. Her smile faltered. She said, "Oh, Ryan, I thought you said you couldn't make it?" Behind her, I could see Derek in the living room. He was looking at his phone, and when he glanced up and saw me, he started laughing. Actually laughing. My Aunt Linda called from the kitchen. "Who's at the door?" My mom turned and said, "It's Ryan." There must have been some confusion. That's when I understood. The group chat invitation had been a mistake. They'd meant to create a new group without me. They'd accidentally included me in something I was never meant to be part of. I stood on the porch holding my grandmother's pie, looking at my mother's embarrassed face, listening to my brother's laughter, and something inside me went quiet and still. I didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't make a scene. I handed my mom the pie, said Happy Thanksgiving, walked back to my truck, and drove straight to my mountain house. I spent that Thanksgiving alone, eating a turkey sandwich and watching the sun set over the valley from my new deck. And I was done. Completely, utterly, permanently done. November at the mountain house became my sanctuary. I went up every weekend, sometimes leaving Thursday night and not coming back until Monday morning. I'd taken advantage of my job's flexible remote work policy, and my boss didn't seem to mind as long as I hit my deadlines. I'd never been more productive. I met my neighbors, Bill and Susan Henderson, a retired couple in their 70s who lived about a quarter-mile down the road. Susan brought over a plate of cookies one Saturday morning, introducing herself and welcoming me to the area. They were warm and genuine, asking about my life without prying, offering to help if I ever needed anything. In 2 conversations, they showed me more kindness than my own family had in years. The first week of December, my mom called. I was at my Denver apartment, finishing up a budget report for a client. I let it go to voicemail. She left a long message, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. She said they needed to talk about the holidays. She missed me. She wanted to work things out. She hoped we could put the past behind us and move forward as a family. She never mentioned Christmas specifically, never actually extended an invitation. The message was all vague sentiment and no concrete action. I deleted it. Mid-December brought an unexpected email. It was from Amanda, Derek's girlfriend. I'd met her exactly twice at family events, and we'd never exchanged more than pleasantries. The email was brief and direct. It said, "Ryan, I don't know if I should be sending this, but I think you should know. Derek has been asking a lot of questions about your finances, where you live, what properties you own, what you're worth. He found out somehow that you bought a place in the mountains. A mutual friend saw your truck there and mentioned it. Derek is obsessed with it. He keeps talking about how the property would be perfect for him, how he deserves it more than you do because he'd actually use it for a family someday. I'm breaking up with him. He's not who I thought he was, but I wanted to warn you. I think he's planning something. Be careful." I read the email 3 times. Then I called my lawyer. James Patterson had handled my house closing. He was in his 50s, sharp and no nonsense, with the kind of calm competence that made you feel like everything would be okay. I explained the situation, my family history, the money it loaned, the exclusion, the Thanksgiving incident, and now Amanda's warning. James listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Ryan, I'm going to be blunt. Your family sounds like they have a pattern of taking advantage of you. Now they've discovered you have an asset they want. Document everything. Save every text, every email, every voicemail, and I'd suggest installing security cameras on your property. If they're planning something, you want evidence." I took his advice seriously. The next day, I hired a security company to install a comprehensive system at the mountain house. 8 cameras covering every entrance, the driveway, the deck, and the main interior rooms. Everything uploaded to cloud storage automatically and sent alerts to my phone. The technician who installed it said I had better security than most banks. I also reached out to Deputy Tom Willis, who had met at a local coffee shop near the mountain house a few weeks earlier. Tom was in his 40s, fit and friendly, with the kind of steady presence that made you trust him immediately. We'd chatted about the area, local wildlife, property security. Had mentioned there'd been some issues with theft in the area, people breaking into vacation homes during the off-season. I called Tom and explained my situation in vague terms. Family issues, concerns about my property. He gave me his personal cell number and said if anything seemed off, day or night, I should call him immediately. Christmas week arrived. I'd taken the entire week off work, planning to spend it at my mountain house. My first real Christmas in my own place. I was going to make myself a nice dinner, read by the fire, maybe hike in the snow. It was going to be peaceful. Mine. December 23rd. My phone rang. My mom again. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, her voice sugary and almost desperate. She said the family felt terrible about Thanksgiving. It had been a miscommunication. They wanted to make it right for Christmas. They'd love for me to come over on December 26th. Derek wanted to apologize. Please come. They were my family. I listened to the voicemail twice, analyzing every word. December 26th. Not Christmas Day itself, but the day after. Still keeping me at arm's length even in their supposed apology. And not a single mention of the 12 years of forgotten Christmases before this one. I didn't respond. That night, December 23rd, at 11:14 p.m., my phone buzzed with a security alert. Someone was on my property. I pulled up the camera feed on my phone. Derek's truck was slowly driving past the house, headlights off. It stopped at the end of the driveway. Derek got out, leaving the engine running. He had a flashlight. He walked around the property, shining the light on the windows, the doors, the new deck. He took photos with his phone. He walked all the way around the house, checking every entrance, taking more photos. He stood on my deck for a solid 2 minutes, looking in through the windows, his face pressed against the glass. Then he got back in his truck and drove away. I recorded everything, sent the footage to James immediately, even though it was nearly midnight. He responded within 10 minutes. This is trespassing and possibly surveillance for a planned crime. Call me first thing in the morning. We need to talk to your deputy friend. I barely slept that night. I kept watching the camera feeds, half expecting Derek to come back. Christmas Eve morning, I was at the mountain house drinking coffee when James arrived at 10 a.m. We sat at my kitchen table reviewing the footage frame by frame. James took notes, asked questions, built a timeline. Tom arrived at 11 a.m., parking his personal vehicle behind some trees down the driveway where it wouldn't be visible from the road. He was off duty but came in uniform at my request. We needed to look official. The three of us spent the next few hours going over Colorado property law, trespassing statutes, breaking and entering, attempted theft. James had prepared cease and desist letters and restraining order paperwork. Everything was ready. I showed them my documentation. The property deed, mortgage papers marked paid in full, property tax receipts, all in my name alone. James photographed everything. We reviewed the camera system, made sure everything was recording properly. At 1 p.m., my phone rang. My mom. I didn't answer. She left another voicemail. Her voice sounded strained, almost frantic. She said they were all getting together that night for Christmas Eve. They'd love to see me. Derek felt awful about everything. Please come. They were my family. At 3 p.m., my mom sent a text. Are you home? In Denver? I didn't respond. At 4 p.m., Derek texted, Mom's worried about you. You okay, man? I thought about my response carefully. Then I typed, I'm fine. Spending Christmas alone like always. Have a good one. I wanted them to think I was in Denver, 300 miles away, unsuspecting. At 6:14 p.m., my security cameras lit up with alerts. The three of us gathered around my laptop, watching the live feed. Derek's truck pulled up the driveway. He got out. Then my mother got out from the passenger side. My stomach dropped. Seeing her there, actively participating, hurt worse than I'd expected. A third vehicle arrived 2 minutes later. A white van with a magnetic sign on the side. Barry's Locksmith Services. I recognized Barry. Head changed the locks on my Denver apartment 2 years ago when I'd lost my keys. Derek must have hired him specifically because he knew Barry had worked for me before. Tom looked at me and said quietly, You ready for this? I nodded. James put a hand on my shoulder. We watched the screen as my mother approached Barry. We couldn't hear what she was saying yet, but her body language was animated. She was pointing at the house, gesturing. Barry looked uncomfortable. Then they moved closer to the front door, and the camera's audio picked up her voice. This is my property, she was saying. I have a tenant who changed the locks illegally. Hess refusing to leave. I need to get in before he comes back and causes more trouble. We just need access to remove his belongings. Derek stood beside her, nodding seriously. He added, Guy's been squatting here for months. Want pay rent. Mom's been too nice about it. Barry looked uncertain. He said, Do you have documentation? Ownership papers? My mom's voice was confident. Of course. They're inside. That's why we need to get in. Barry still hesitated. He said, I don't know. This doesn't feel right. Maybe you should go through the courts. Derek's voice got sharp. We hired you to do a job. We're paying you $200 cash. Just open the door. Barry sighed and pulled out his tools. He knelt in front of my door and started working on the lock. Tom looked at me. James nodded. I said, "Let's go." We moved through the house silently, positioning ourselves. The plan was simple. Let Barry actually get the door open, so we'd have attempted illegal entry on camera, then confront them before anyone actually stepped inside. We needed irrefutable evidence. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. This was my mother, my brother. People I'd loved my entire life, despite everything, and I was about to catch them trying to steal from me. Barry worked on the lock for about 3 minutes. It was a good lock, one of the high-security ones the installer had recommended. But Barry was skilled. I heard the click as the mechanism gave way. The front door swung open. Derek started to step forward, his foot crossing the threshold. That's when Tom spoke, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "That's far enough. Step away from the door." The effect was instantaneous. My mother spun around, her face going white. When she saw Tom in his deputy uniform, the color drained completely. Then spots of red appeared on her cheeks. Derek froze mid-step, his expression cycling through surprise, confusion, and then anger. Barry scrambled backward, tools clattering. My mother recovered first, her voice sliding into a performance. "Officer, thank goodness you're here. This is my property and there's been a squatter. We've been trying to resolve this for months." Derek jumped in, his voice eager. "Yeah, some guy changed the locks and refuses to leave. We just want our property back." Tom held up one hand. "Mom, I'm going to stop you right there." That's when I stepped forward from behind Tom. The look on my mother's face was something I'll never forget. Her mouth literally fell open. Her eyes went wide. For a moment, she looked almost comically shocked, like a character in a cartoon. Derek's face showed pure shock that quickly morphed into rage. His hands clenched into fists. I kept my voice calm and level, though inside I was shaking. "This is my property. I have the deed. I own this house outright. These people are my mother and brother, and they're attempting to illegally enter my home." Derek exploded. "Your home? You ungrateful piece of garbage. Mom helped you buy this place." I shook my head. "I bought this house with my own money. My mother didn't contribute a single dollar. I have all the documentation to prove it." My mother tried a different tactic. Her voice broke, tears springing to her eyes. "Ryan, sweetie, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Derek mentioned you had a mountain property, and I thought you'd bought it for the family to share, you know, like a vacation home. I wanted to surprise you by decorating it for Christmas. I was going to hang lights and put up a tree. I thought you'd be so happy. It was a good performance. If I didn't know better, I might have believed her." James stepped forward, introducing himself. "Mrs. Carson, I'm James Patterson, Ryan's attorney. I'm going to advise you to stop talking. Everything you've said in the last 5 minutes has been recorded by multiple security cameras with audio." He pointed to the cameras mounted under the eaves. My mother's face changed. The tears dried up. Her expression became calculating. Barry, the locksmith, backed up another few steps. He held up his hands. "Look, I don't want any part of this. Lady, you told me this was your place. You said you had a squatter. If I'd known this was family drama, I never would have come." Derek turned on Barry, his voice vicious. "You're not going anywhere. We paid you. Finish the job." Tom's voice was sharp. "Sir, if you prevent this man from leaving, that's false imprisonment. If he enters this house now that we've established it's not your property, that's breaking and entering. I strongly suggest everyone calm down." Barry didn't wait for permission. He grabbed his tools and practically ran to his van. Derek turned back to me, and the look on his face was pure hatred. "You think you're so smart? So successful? You're nothing. You've always been nothing. Dad knew it. Mom knows it. That's why nobody wants you around." The words were designed to hurt, and they did. But I'd been preparing for this. I'd known exactly what they'd say, what buttons they'd try to push. I kept my voice steady. I used to think there was something wrong with me, that I wasn't good enough for you, but I finally understand. You excluded me because you couldn't control me. You can't stand that I built something you didn't give me permission to have. My mother's mask slipped completely. Her voice turned harsh and ugly. You selfish brat. After everything I've done for you, I raised you. I fed you. I kept a roof over your head. I deserve this house more than you do. Derek needs it. He's trying to start a family. He has a future. You're just one person wasting all this space on yourself. There it was. The truth. I wasn't a person to her. I was a resource she felt entitled to. I said quietly, "You're right. You raised me. You provided for me when I was a child, and I'm grateful for that. But then you forgot me every Christmas for 12 years. You called me only when you needed money. $200,000. I have every bank transfer, every canceled check, every PayPal receipt." My mother's eyes narrowed. That money was the least you could do. Do you know how much it cost to raise you? So that was how she justified it. Raising me had been an investment she expected returns on. Derek suddenly lunged toward me. Tom stepped between us instantly, his hand moving to his belt. Derek stopped but screamed, "That money was Dad's. You inherited half his life insurance and Mom should have gotten it all. You stole from us." I went very still. This was new information. James asked quietly, "Mrs. Carson, did you tell Derek that Ryan stole his inheritance?" My mother's face went pale. She opened her mouth but no sound came out. The pieces fell into place with horrible clarity. My mother had been lying to Derek. For years, poisoning him against me with fabricated stories about stolen money. That's why Head hated me so much. That's why Head felt justified in taking from me, excluding me, treating me like an enemy. My voice shook but stayed controlled. "Derek, Dad left us each $50,000. Equal amounts. I have the will. I've had it since the reading 8 years ago." "Did Mom tell you I got more?" Derek's face showed confusion, then doubt. His anger flickered. "She said you got 200,000 and I only got 50. She said Dad always loved you more because you went to college. She said you cheated me." I pulled out my phone, opened my documents folder, and pulled up the scanned copy of our father's will. I held it out to Derek. He took it with shaking hands and read it. I watched his face as the truth sank in. The anger drained away, replaced by confusion, then betrayal, then something that looked like grief. He turned to our mother. His voice was small. "Mom? What is this?" She scrambled for an explanation. "Derek, honey, I can explain. Ryan was always so good with money. I thought he didn't need as much. I thought if I told you he got more, you'd understand why he was so successful. I was trying to protect you from feeling bad about yourself. It was a nonsense explanation, and we all knew it." Derek said, "You lied to me. For 8 years. I thought my brother screwed me over. I've hated him because you said he stole from me." His voice cracked on the last word. She tried to put her arms around him. "Derek, sweetie, I only wanted what was best for you." He pushed her away, hard enough that she stumbled. "Don't touch me." I kept talking, my voice sad but firm. "The 200,000 wasn't from Dad, Derek. I earned it. I worked 60-hour weeks for years. I lived in a tiny apartment and drove an old truck and ate cheap food. I invested every spare dollar, and every time you or Mom called needing money, I sent it because I thought that's what family did." I looked at my mother. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You kept me isolated, forgot me at holidays, then called when you needed cash. You turned Derek against me so He'd never question why I wasn't around. You wanted my money but not me." My mother's face hardened. The mask was completely gone now. Her voice was cold. "You were always so distant, Ryan. So cold. You never needed anyone. You were fine on your own. Derek needed me. He needed a mother. You didn't." It was breathtaking, the way she reframed everything. My independence, which had developed because she pushed me away, was now proof that I deserved to be pushed away. I said, "I needed you every single Christmas I spent alone. Every birthday you forgot. Every time Derek got celebrated and I got ignored. Every time I watched through the window while the whole family gathered without me. I needed you to be my mother. You chose not to be. Tom interjected, his voice professional. Mrs. Carson, Derek Carson, I'm going to ask you both to leave this property immediately. If you return without explicit written permission from the owner, you'll be arrested for trespassing, James added. I have cease and desist orders prepared for both of you. Ryan is also filing for a restraining order. You're to have no contact with him, no contact with his property, no attempts at communication. Any violation will result in immediate legal action. My mother played her final card. The tears came back, streaming down her face. Ryan, please. I'm your mother. Don't do this to me. It's Christmas. You can't do this on Christmas. The manipulation was so transparent it was almost funny. She'd forgotten me on Christmas for 12 years. But now Christmas was sacred because it served her purpose. I said, You're right. It is Christmas, and just like every other Christmas, you remembered me only when you wanted something from me. The difference is, this year I'm not giving it to you. She stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe she'd never really known me at all. Derek suddenly spoke. His voice was quiet. Stop. Everyone turned to look at him. He was looking at me, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Ryan. I believed her. I thought you were the bad guy. All these years, I thought you were selfish and cold and you'd stolen from me. I treated you like garbage because she told me you deserved it. He turned to our mother, his voice breaking. Mom, we're leaving. And you need to figure out who you really are, because I don't know you anymore. My mother reached for his arm. Derek, honey, please. Don't let him turn you against me. He jerked away from her touch. Turn me against you? You did this. You lied to both of us. You kept us apart. You used both of us. He looked at me one more time. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it, but I am sorry. For all of it. Then he walked to his truck, got in, and drove away. My mother stood alone in my driveway, looking small and old in a way I'd never noticed before. She looked at me, searching for something. Softness, maybe. Forgiveness, a crack in my armor she could exploit. My face was stone. She whispered, You'll regret this. I said nothing. She got in her car and drove away. Barry, the locksmith, had already disappeared. The only sound was the wind in the pine trees and the distant call of a crow. Tom and James stayed for another hour. We went inside, made coffee, and sat at my kitchen table while Tom filed an official incident report on his laptop. He documented everything: the trespassing, the attempted illegal entry, the false statements made to the locksmith, Derek's previous surveillance of the property on December 23rd. James reviewed the video footage again, making notes for the restraining order filing. He said the footage was clear enough that we could potentially pursue criminal charges if I wanted to. Breaking and entering, fraud, conspiracy. He said it was my choice. I said I'd think about it. Right now, I just wanted them gone. Permanently. James prepared formal cease and desist letters for both my mother and Derek. He'd have them served after Christmas. He also prepared the restraining order paperwork, which would require them to stay at least 500 feet away from me and my property. Tom added their names and vehicle information to a watch list for local law enforcement. If either of them was spotted in the area, deputies would be notified. Before they left, Tom shook my hand. His grip was firm. He said, You handled that with more grace than most people could manage. Merry Christmas, Ryan. James clapped me on the shoulder. You did the right thing. Setting boundaries isn't cruelty. It's self-respect. A lot of people never learn that. They left around 8 p.m. Tom's personal vehicle disappeared down the driveway first, then James in his sensible sedan. I stood alone in my house for the first time since the confrontation. The silence was profound. I walked through the rooms I'd renovated, touching the counters I'd installed, looking at the deck I'd built. I'd created this with my own hands. It was mine in a way nothing had ever been mine before. I felt exhausted, sad, relieved, free. I made myself dinner because that's what you do. You keep living. Steak seasoned simply with salt and pepper. Roasted potatoes with rosemary. Green beans sautéed in butter and garlic. I set my table for one. Lit a candle. Poured a glass of red wine. As I ate, I thought about the day. The confrontation. My mother's face. Derek's tears. The thing about setting boundaries is that it feels terrible even when it's right. You're not supposed to have to protect yourself from your own family. You're supposed to be safe there. But some families are built on dysfunction, and staying in them means sacrificing yourself. I'd finally chosen myself. After dinner, I built a fire in the fireplace, sat in the armchair I'd bought at an estate sale and reupholstered myself, poured 2 fingers of whiskey, watched the flames. Around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed, a text from Derek. It said, "Can I call you? I understand if you say no." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me was curious. Part of me, despite everything, still remembered the little brother who used to follow me around when we were kids, before everything got complicated. I typed, "Not tonight, maybe in time. I need space." His response came quickly. "I understand. I really am sorry. She poisoned me against you. That's not an excuse, but it's the truth. I have a lot to think about." I didn't respond. I set my phone face down on the side table and went back to watching the fire. Christmas morning, I woke up in my mountain house to fresh snow. 8 inches had fallen overnight, transforming the world into something clean and quiet. I made coffee and took it out onto the deck, wrapped in a thick blanket, watching the sun rise over the valley. The sky turned from deep blue to pink to gold. The snow sparkled. A deer picked its way through the trees below the house. I felt peace. Around 10 a.m., I heard footsteps on my driveway. I tensed for a moment, but then I recognized Bill and Susan Henderson walking up with a plate covered in aluminum foil. Susan called out, "Merry Christmas, dear. We saw the commotion yesterday and wanted to make sure you're all right." I invited them in. We sat at my kitchen table, and they shared cinnamon rolls Susan had made that morning. They didn't pry. Just said they hoped everything was okay, and if I needed anything at all, they were right down the road. Bill said, "Family's complicated. We get it. Sometimes the family you choose matters more than the family you're born into." Susan added, "We're having Christmas dinner at 2 p.m. Nothing fancy, just us and our kids and grandkids. There'll be too much food. We'd love to have you join us if you'd like." I felt my eyes sting. I said I'd love to come. That afternoon, I walked down to the Hendersons' house. Their home was full of noise and warmth. 3 kids under 10 running around. Their adult children and spouses in the kitchen helping with dinner. A teenage granddaughter setting the table. They introduced me around. "This is Ryan, our neighbor." Nobody asked intrusive questions. Nobody made me explain why I was alone on Christmas. They just made space for me at the table like I belonged there. During dinner, Bill made a toast. He raised his glass and said, "To new friends and chosen family. To the people who show up. To second chances and fresh starts." Everyone clinked glasses. The kids yelled cheers too loudly and spilled juice. I felt emotion well up in my chest. This is what family should feel like. Not obligation or manipulation or keeping score. Just people choosing to be kind to each other. Choosing to make space. Choosing to show up. After dinner, we played board games. The kids taught me some card game with constantly changing rules. Susan's daughter told funny stories about her job as a nurse. Bill and I talked about fishing. Around 7 p.m., I walked back to my own house through the snow. The stars were out, brilliant and cold. I could see my breath. Inside, I sat down with the leather journal I'd started keeping. I'd been writing in it most nights, trying to process everything. Tonight I wrote about boundaries, about self-worth, about the difference between being alone and being lonely. I wrote, "I spent 32 years trying to earn love from people who treated me like an ATM. I thought if I gave enough, tried enough, sacrificed enough, made myself small enough, they'd finally see me. But love doesn't work that way. Real love isn't something you earn. It's given freely, or it's not love at all." I continued. Today I learned that standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. And sometimes the family you need isn't the one you're born into. It's the one you choose. The Hendersons chose me today. They didn't know my history or my bank account or what I could do for them. They just chose kindness. That's what I want to build my life around now. Not obligation. Choice. The days between Christmas and New Year's passed quietly. I stayed at the mountain house, working remotely, taking long walks in the snow, reading by the fire. I felt like I was recuperating from an illness. The confrontation had taken more out of me than I'd realized. Tom called to check in on December 27th. No sign of my mother or Derek in the area. The cease and desist letters would be served on December 28th. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for January 4th. James emailed me the video footage, securely backed up in multiple locations. He said if I decided to press charges, the evidence was ironclad. He also said I didn't have to decide right away. I could take my time. New Year's Eve came. I spent it alone, which felt right. At midnight, I stood on my deck and watched fireworks bloom in the distance over Breckenridge. I toasted the new year with whiskey and said out loud to no one, "Harris to better things." On January 3rd, I found a letter in my mailbox. My heart sank when I saw Derek's handwriting on the envelope. For a moment, I considered throwing it away without reading it. But curiosity won. I opened it standing right there by the mailbox. The letter was handwritten on lined paper, the kind you'd tear out of a notebook. Derek's handwriting was messy but legible. Ryan. It started. I've been in therapy since December 26th, 3 sessions so far, doctor. Martinez is helping me understand a lot of things about Mom, about our family, about myself. None of this is an excuse for how I've treated you. I'm not writing this to make you feel sorry for me or to ask for forgiveness I don't deserve. I just wanted you to know that I'm finally seeing clearly. Mom manipulated both of us. She kept us apart on purpose. She made me believe you were the enemy so I wouldn't question why you were never around. Every time I asked about you when I was younger, she'd say you were busy, or you didn't care about family, or you thought you were too good for us. She built a version of you in my head that had nothing to do with who you really are. I believed her because she's my mom. I trusted her, and she used that trust to control both of us. I'm not making excuses. I'm 30 years old. I should have questioned things. I should have reached out to you directly instead of believing everything she said. I should have noticed that you were never at Christmas or Thanksgiving or any family event. I should have wondered why. I should have cared. But I didn't. And I'm sorry. I know sorry doesn't fix 12 years of being a terrible brother. It doesn't undo the things I said or the way I treated you. But I am sorry. For whatever that's worth. I moved out of Mom's house. I'm renting a place in Lakewood. I haven't spoken to her since Christmas Eve. I don't know if I will anytime soon. I need to figure out who I am without her voice in my head telling me what to think. I'm also working on getting my life together, real job applications, therapy, trying to grow up, basically. You don't owe me anything. Not forgiveness, not a relationship, not even a response to this letter. You've already given too much to this family, but I wanted you to know that I see what I did wrong. I see what she did wrong, and am trying to be better. Merry belated Christmas, Ryan. I hope it was peaceful. Your brother, Derek. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my jacket pocket. I didn't know how I felt about it yet. Hurt. Sad. Cautious. Maybe a tiny bit hopeful. I wasn't ready to respond. Maybe I would be someday. Maybe I wouldn't. That was okay. I got to decide on my own timeline. February brought changes at work. My boss called me into her office and told me I was being promoted to senior accountant with a 20% raise. She said I'd been their most reliable employee for years, and my work quality had somehow gotten even better in recent months. She asked what had changed. I smiled and said I'd gotten some things sorted out in my personal life. March arrived with the smell of thawing earth and pine sap. The snow melted, revealing my property in all its early spring glory. I spent weekends clearing brush, planning a garden, building raised beds for vegetables. The Hendersons invited me over for dinner at least twice a month. Their daughter, Rachel, the nurse, started texting me occasionally. Funny memes, articles about hiking trails in the area. Nothing heavy, just friendly. In April, Rachel invited me to a community potluck in town. I made my grandmother's potato salad and went, feeling nervous. Rachel introduced me around to her friends. One of them was a teacher named Emily, pretty and funny with an easy laugh. We ended up talking for 2 hours about books and travel and what we loved about living in the mountains. Emily and I started seeing each other casually. Coffee, hikes, dinner in town. She was kind and straightforward and had no patience for games or drama. She'd been through her own family issues and understood boundaries. We took things slow, which felt right. I planted my garden in May. Tomatoes, peppers, zucchini, herbs, and a whole section of flowers. Susan Henderson gave me seeds she'd saved from her own garden and advice on dealing with the deer. Every evening, I'd water my plants and pull weeds, dirt under my fingernails, the setting sun warm on my back. I'd never felt more grounded. In June, my mother tried to contact me through my cousin Lisa. Lisa called and said my mom wanted to talk, that she was sorry, that she missed me. I told Lisa I appreciated her reaching out, but I'd asked for no contact and I meant it. Lisa said she understood. She didn't push. My boundaries held. July brought warm weather and long days. Emily and I hiked Quandary Peak. She met the Hendersons, who loved her immediately. I met her parents, who were warm and welcoming. Her dad shook my hand and said, "Any friend of Emily's is welcome here. No interrogation, no conditions. Just welcome." In August, Derek sent another letter, shorter this time. He was still in therapy, still working on himself. Had gotten a steady job in warehouse management. He was sorry. He hoped I was doing well. No pressure for a response. I sat with that letter for a week. Then I wrote back. Nothing long. Just, "Derek, I got your letter. I'm not ready for a relationship yet, but I appreciate you respecting my boundaries. Keep doing the work. Take care of yourself, Ryan." I mailed it and felt okay about it. Not hopeful, exactly, but not closed off either. Just open to the possibility that someday, maybe, we could build something honest. September came. 1 year since I'd said no to my mother for the first time. 1 year since I'd started choosing myself. I was sitting on my deck one evening, watching the sunset, when my phone rang. It was James, my lawyer. He said, "Ryan, I wanted to let you know. Your mother dropped her counterfiling. She's not contesting the restraining order anymore. It's permanent now. You're protected." I thanked him, hung up, sat with that information. It was over. Really over. She'd finally given up. I felt relief, sadness, grief for what could have been, gratitude for what was. October brought another letter from Derek. He said Head started volunteering at a community center, teaching kids basic carpentry. He said it made him feel useful. He said Head driven past my Denver apartment once, not to bother me, just to see it. And Head realized he had no idea what my life looked like. He said he was sorry about that. He said Head liked to know me someday, if I ever wanted that. No pressure. I wrote back, "Derek, I'm glad you're doing better. I'm doing well too. Maybe we can meet for coffee in a few months. We'll see. Ryan, baby steps." That's all it had to be. November arrived. The air turned cold. Snow threatened. I stocked my mountain house with firewood and groceries, ready for winter. On December 23rd, exactly 1 year after Derek had surveilled my property, I invited the Hendersons over for dinner. Emily came too. I cooked a roast with all the sides. We ate and laughed and played cards by the fire. Susan said, "Ryan, dear, you seem happy. Really happy." I realized she was right. I was happy. Not perfect, not healed from everything, but genuinely, deeply happy. Christmas Eve, Emily stayed over. We cooked breakfast together, took a long walk in fresh snow, came back and curled up on the couch under blankets, reading and not talking, just being together. Christmas morning, I woke up in my own bed, in my own house, with someone who chose to be there, not because of obligation or guilt or what I could give her, just because she wanted to be. We spent the day quietly, made a big breakfast, video chatted with Emily's family, invited the Hendersons over for pie in the afternoon. That evening, sitting by the fire, Emily asked if I was okay, if the anniversary of last year was hard. I thought about it. Then I said, last year, I lost a family that never really wanted me. This year, I found people who do. I'm more than okay. She squeezed my hand. Late that night, after Emily had gone home and the house was quiet, I opened my journal one last time. I wrote, family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about respect, love, and showing up. I spent decades trying to earn a place at a table where I was never welcome. The day I walked away, I found something better. People who wanted me there, not for what I could give them, but for who I am. Setting boundaries isn't cruelty. It's choosing yourself. And sometimes, choosing yourself is the most loving thing you can do, not just for you, but for everyone involved. Real love doesn't keep score. It doesn't forget. And it certainly doesn't need a locksmith to break down your door. I closed the journal, looked around my house, my sanctuary, my home. Id built this, not just the renovations, but the life, the peace, the joy, and it was mine. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who took advantage of you? How did you find the courage to choose yourself? Share your story in the comments. I read every single one, and your experiences might help someone else who's struggling with the same thing. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories. And if you're not already subscribed, consider subscribing. I share stories every week about real-life challenges, standing up for yourself, and finding peace. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it, someone who's struggling with family boundaries, someone who needs permission to choose themselves. Sometimes, we all need a reminder that it's okay to walk away from people who don't value us. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope your holidays are filled with people who genuinely want you there. And if they're not, I hope you find the courage to build something better. Take care of yourselves. You deserve it.